Yeah. Yeah, of course, it's a well-known fact that the darker the restaurant is, the heavier the check. Yeah. Yeah, my dad told me that once. It was one of his 12 rules for life. Yeah, did I ever tell you my dad was Jordan Peterson? I don't know. No, he wasn't. I was just joking. He also didn't say that. Bit of sage wisdom that the darker the restaurant is, the more you're going to have to pay for the meal. Yeah. I've never read that 12 Rules for Life book by the professor, the clinical psychologist, Jordan Peterson. Is that one of his rules? I don't know. You know how he definitely gives off big authoritarian, dad energy. Have all dads, have those little bits of advice for their kids. Never trust a clean truck. Never play cards with a guy named Slim, or a guy who has the first name of a city, right? Always get 12 hours of sleep. Never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger. Yeah, was that in 12 Rules for Life? It's like, what was that? There was another book, right? 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. I don't know. Make sure she doesn't have a tattoo of a dagger. And if she comes home with one, then you'll have a tattoo of a dagger on you as well. But it'll be real, son. Yeah, no, he never gave me any rules. I'm really trying to think of any wisdom my dad imparted to me. I think my dad was not one of those dads who spoke in parables. I guess he just gave me wisdom and showed me how to live. I suppose his method of dadding was more based on behavior that I was meant to learn from him, I suppose, right? Yeah, so thanks, Dad. Happy Father's Day. Yeah, I really do mean it, though. I really do mean it. That I'll tell you that right now, if you didn't already know, that when you go into a restaurant and you can't see your hand in front of your face, like the darker the restaurant, right, the more you're going to have to pay, right? Yeah, that's absolutely something that I've figured out in life. It's just it's an it's an inevitability. I don't know what it is. I guess they save on the lighting to get you better food, or the sense of atmosphere, the sense of ambiance. That's the entertaining part of the dinner. It comes with the bill. It's entertainment. It's much more expensive, right? But yeah, it is. I know it does sound like a piece of dad wisdom, though, right? And I know it's odd because I don't have children. And so as an adult, when I say these things out loud, if I, it's well-earned wisdom, but, when you don't have kids of your own to impart it to, you just sound kind of like a cynical old dork who likes to put himself in the same old situations so as he can complain about them, right? Like it's advice that's dead on arrival. It's DOA. It's, it's not really advice at that point. It has nowhere to go. It's just, that's a complaint. And usually it's met like, with an eye roll from whomever you're with, like your wife. That's sort of what happened, last night at our dinner that we were at, But anyway, it wasn't too dramatic. I wasn't being too angry about it, too irritated. Because it was like last night was a bit of a celebration. We went out. We never really get to go out that much anymore, my wife and I. The last time I think we went out, it was just because we had a gift card that my wife had found at the bottom of her purse from Christmas that, to like a local pizza restaurant. So my wife and I had gone there 2 Sundays ago, the night before summer camp started. We got like a slice of pizza each and cocktails. I got an old fashioned and we had just gotten finished with summer camp yesterday, so we decided to end it, the way it began with old fashions, with cocktails, right? Yeah, it was just one of those things where, summer camp was over. We had survived it. And, I suppose it was like an appropriate day, too. Yeah, yesterday was... Right, it was Friday the 13th, wasn't it?
Hello?
Yeah.
Who's that?
There's the Camp Crystal Lake. We weren't at Camp Crystal Lake, but, yeah. But all the scary stuff, right? Yeah. You've got, like, complaining kids in danger. You got, we didn't have old man warnings. We didn't have an old man warning us not to go to the camp. We did have this. We had sneaky kids. They were good. They weren't like fooling around or anything like that. They were very well behaved. We didn't have this either at summer camp. Killers roaming around the woods with knives, stalking the counselors. We did have this though. We had scary bathrooms. Yeah.
Seven.
Yeah. There were no cabins. No cabins. It wasn't a sleepaway camp. All the kids came in the morning and they left at like 3:30 in the afternoon. No bodies flying through the windows. Yeah.
10.
No Kevin Bacon, unfortunately, either.
11. 12. Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough. Friday, the 13th.
Yeah. You may only teach summer camp once, but that'll be enough. Yeah, it's This was not my first time teaching summer camp. It's hard to believe. This was my 10th year teaching summer camp. My wife's been doing it a little bit longer, But it wasn't like quite like Friday the 13th, although I wish it was to a degree. I like those Friday the 13th movies. There's a sense of a nostalgia for this past that you never had, but you feel you should have. Just growing up in America, it just feels natural that you should have gone to summer camp. I did go to summer camp. I went to Boy Scout camp for like 1 week. It was a sleepaway camp and absolutely did not like it. It was just not, it was not my cup of tea to just like be out in the middle of the woods with, just in these like hot tents all week long. It's like no air conditioning. I very much, as an adult, really have enjoyed camping quite a bit. I just didn't like it on this like rigid schedule that the Boy Scouts, put you on. It's like I wanted to go out there and just hang out in the woods. I was totally fine to just like sit in my tent or like find a nice tree to sit under and read, as long as there weren't any snakes under there. But they were like, no, you got to go swim. And I was like, well, I don't want to go swim. It's like, it doesn't matter. You got to go take the swim test anyway. They always about the swim test. I wonder if they had any swim tests at Camp Crystal Lake. Well, I guess they had to, right? Because that's the whole thing that happened to Jason Voorhees, is that he couldn't swim. He was. The counselors weren't there. They weren't paying attention, right? But yeah, sort of to a degree, just do wish that I could have gone to like a real summer camp like Camp Crystal Lake, and even like as an adult, going out to like a real summer camp and taught for 2 weeks. I think that would have been really cool. It's like these Friday the 13th movies, they give us just this sense of like, what it's supposed to be like. Of course, then the killings happen. It's like I like all those Friday the 13th summer camp movies, like Sleepaway Camp 2. I love the first like 20 minutes of them, before there's any danger. I just want to like live in that world. And we don't have to have Jason Voorhees. We can sit around the campfire and tell like scary stories about him. We can totally do that. That's a lot of fun. Like in part 2, I love the scene in Friday the 13th part 2 where they just sit around and tell the Jason origin story. That's a lot of fun. And then let's just go to the bar, or we can hang out at the cabin and continue to have a good time. We don't have to have Jason Voorhees, stalking us and killing us and all that stuff, But yeah, nevertheless, yeah, we did, my wife and I, we did teach summer camp. Like I said, it was not a sleepaway camp. The kids came at like 8:30 in the morning. It was a theater camp. It was not just like a general activities camp. I don't know when this thing happened. I don't think this has always been a thing. I think summer camps used to just generally be like co-ed. The boys and girls come and they do like archery and arts and crafts and hike around the woods and theater and things like that. It's just a general purpose thing, but like I have been teaching kids for a while, and I've been teaching summer camp for a while, and I've never known the kids to just go to a general all-purpose summer camp. I really do think that kind of thing is phased out, maybe. Like that was more of like a thing that happened between like the 20s and maybe the 1990s. It was like kind of the last great gasp of it. And now it's just more splintered, right? It's like there's theater camp and tennis camp and take my child to Venice camp. And there's just all kinds of camps. And we taught a theater camp. And yeah, we were not out in the woods at some like isolated, cut off from civilization outpost. It was, in a way, sort of remote. We were at this high school that's in the this section of Metro Birmingham. It's like in the middle of the city, really. If you look at a map of Birmingham, Alabama, this suburb, this area we were in is sort of right there in the middle of it. But it was the original white flight, settlement back in the 1960s, and has since, retained that. Just like, we are not a part of you. We are off in our own little fort. It's not like there's like walls up around this gigantic neighborhood, but it is. They have deliberately designed it so that by the time you get into the village proper, I don't want to say the name, but if you're from Birmingham, it's Fountain Crook. It's what we'll just call it. It's just a series of weaving mazes like in The Shining. It's just a fort into itself, and so it's really like you can get to the school that we were teaching at in like 5 minutes if you were a crow, but you're not a crow, unfortunately. You have four wheels, and gas, and so you have to just it takes forever to get there. It really does. It's just and I had to put my GPS on every single time. I never could memorize the route to get there. It was so confusing. Right. Especially in the morning when you have to detour very often, because there's like very frequently, like, the roads are very narrow, and there's just all of these people who live in this community. They hire landscapers, so there's landscapers all over the place, landscaping trucks, and these crews just out in the street. So it's really difficult, and you're almost always getting detoured. And so, yeah, it just becomes very confusing, out there. And it's like, really, there's no legends of, Jason Voorhees or like masked killers, but I have heard tale of, food delivery drivers who went back into this area, into Fountain Crook, 3 to 4 years ago. And, they never came out. Every once in a while you may see them, driving up and down, coasting on fumes, looking for their way out. So yeah, we commuted out there, yeah, every day for 2 weeks. It was a split session. So last week was one group of kids, and this week was a completely new group of kids, and they both went really well. I think this past week went better than the previous week. I think the previous week I was just like feeling like I was just a little bit out of it, because I've been out of the classroom. I haven't been teaching for a couple of months now. It's so weird, because teaching college, your term ends in the middle of April, so this is early June, so I'm a little out of practice just being in front of students. And not only that, but like young students as well. These are not, college-age students taking theater camp here. These are, anywhere from like 7 years old to say like 14 or 15 years old is what they are. So it took me a few days to get into the groove of things. By the time I finally did, it was like a new group of kids. So it's like I feel bad. I feel like I shortchanged or whatever that first group of kids. I mean, it was okay. They still got everything done, but I definitely feel like I did better, this week. And I think one of the things is that there's this big semantic hurdle, I guess, to get over with the kids in the first week, and you just get really good at it, like, because there's always a kid, that first day of summer camp, and they're sitting in an art room in front of a piece of paper, holding a pencil in their hand, writing something. And there's always that one kid who's going to be like, this is just like school. This is not summer camp. Right? There's always a point where one of them makes that. And so you just have to, do everything in your power to convince them that, no, this is summer camp. This is not like school at all. You don't get to be this creative in school, right? Even though we're sitting in an art classroom. And, but I try to, I don't know, just make it something incredibly cool and special, and something unlike that they just want to come and do every day. So my wife, teaches Shakespeare class. So that's a lot of them getting up and saying Shakespeare dialogue and acting out the sword fights, and Julius Caesar getting stabbed to death. And I think my wife is she's become an incredibly good teacher of Shakespeare over the years. And just like you see her preparing for it, and she's got all these different lesson plans that she's created to get the kids engaged in Shakespeare, and just something that, really, it's like if you do not develop a love for Shakespeare, or at least an appreciation for Shakespeare early in life, you're kind of screwed for the rest of your life in terms of like getting into Shakespeare, and not to mention like all the other, elements of literature, of English literature, that spring off from him. So I think she does a great job of that. But while she's down in the theater teaching Shakespeare, I'm up in the art room, and I'm teaching playwriting, which is like doing to a degree kind of makes me feel like a hypocrite. I think I talked about this last week. Like, I am not really a playwright. I think I wrote a play in high school, but really the reason why this theater brought me in 10 years ago to do this class was because like parents want some kind of like an English language arts component to go with some like a humanities camp, like a theater camp or whatever. So it's like, this is something they can offer. They can offer playwriting. So it's a little sneaky, but like I said, I just try to make it, you know, really fun and really like fascinating for the students to actually use playwriting as a way to get them to teach them about what actually entertainment really is, not just theater, not just watching a show, but like watching a movie or reading a book. Like, what is entertainment? And it took me many years of getting to this. It just started very clunkily those like first few years. I would just like have them look at pictures of like characters and some kind of a conflict, and then just like write, like, just look at these pictures of these two people fighting, and I want you to write a scene about what they're fighting about, right? And that went fine, but like over time, it morphed into more of like a meditation on, like, the whole camp was like, I'm asking like 8-year-olds to meditate on like why they watch the things they watch. And a lot of them are very often just because it's like, it's on my phone. I don't know. It just pops up in my scroll. And just to get them to think about, well, why do you stop there, right? And so the ultimate road, all roads sort of into, you know, lead to conflict. The idea that you've got this character and they're in a conflict with themselves over something, or you got two or more people in conflict over, you know, they have conflicting goals, right? And yeah, I just, what I do, and I don't know, this popped into my head a few years ago. This is like, I was thinking about that movie Over the Top, you know, with Sylvester Stallone, which is a silly movie, but, you know, he's a trucker and he's got to get his kid back. And the only way to do this, to win his kid back, to get custody of him, is to, you know, win this, I don't know, this arm wrestling, you know, competition in Las Vegas. So, you know, like what I do is I ask the kids, like, why do we go to the theater? Why do we sit down and watch a show? Or why do we really, you know, watch anything? And they say, like, to just have fun. And I say, okay, well, why are we having fun though? And they say, well, because we're bored. I was like, I know, but why are we so bored? You know? And it just like turns into this thing where they're kind of surprised that I'm asking them all these questions, because usually they're the ones. So it's like, it's an old teacher trick, right? Of just like continuously asking them questions and kind of breaking it down to like the core concept. And so eventually when they get all these answers, they're not giving me the answer that I'm looking for. You know, I put my elbow on a table in front of one of the kids, preferably one of the scrawnier kids. You know, I'm scrawny too, but put my elbow down and like extend my hand out. And I just say, if I did this, what would you do? And they naturally just join me, you know, in an arm wrestling match. And I, of course, let them beat me, and they all laugh. And I say, like, well, why did you do that? I just wanted to give you a high five. And, you know, the kid inevitably says, well, because you made it look like you wanted to arm wrestle me. That's right. I didn't say it, right? So I use this to illustrate for them that it's all about conflict. It's the fact that, like, when you see me making a certain move, you don't have to like look at my eyes. You don't have to like hear me say anything, like, let me challenge you to an arm wrestling match. You just automatically know that, like, you're geared for conflict. Our minds are geared for conflict. Like, we as human beings, it's what makes us look at a car accident when we pass it on the road, right? It's just, we automatically want conflict and drama. And one of the reasons we engage in entertainment and watch TikTok videos and watch movies and go to the theater is because we want to simulate this conflict. We want to see that conflict occur and resolve and give us all the great aspects of conflict that we don't always normally get, you know, in everyday life. Like, sometimes, like we may be looking at the car accident, but we don't know exactly who is involved in the car accident, how it happened. There's all these police cars coming up. So, you know, like, going to the theater allows us to go from beginning to middle to end, opening conflict and resolving it. So, you know, that's it. I think it's like, it's one of these things where all that happens on like the first day, and then from there on out, it's just like teaching the kids how to simulate conflict for an audience and how to put that on paper and all that. And it's just something that goes really, really fast because I get an hour with each group a day, and it just goes really fast. And by the end of by the end of the week on Friday, they've written a play with their groups, and they get to perform it for each other and for their parents. And it just always is something that I thoroughly enjoy. I thoroughly enjoy. It's over, and I kind of miss it now. Yeah, and it did go very well. They were not just giving me lip service this week just to like kind of, please me, because as I said on last week's show, kids, when you teach them, are very, very honest. They will let you know if you're not doing well. And this week it went very, very well. Like, how do I know this? How do I know this? Because they wrote a song about killing me. That's why. It's like the students this week wrote a song about killing me. See, the first week, they really couldn't care less about killing me, but this week they wrote a song about it, and it was a very joyful, happy song. The worst drama this week in my class was honestly when a girl was excluded from a group of girls who wrote a song about killing me. She was sad that she didn't get to sing about killing me too. Right. So, yeah, it's, maybe not killing me. Maybe that's a little bit too harsh. I don't want to sound like, but at least getting rid of me. They came up with a song about, throwing me down a well. And to boot, it wasn't just something, they came up with. They actually wrote the words down. They had one of their, they assigned the girl who initially got excluded. They were like, hey, you have good handwriting. Can you write the song down about, killing Mr. Mike? Yeah, and I took a picture of it. It says, here are the lyrics. I'm not going to try to, get the lyrics, but, it says, we threw Mr. Mike down a well. Just don't ask us. We'll never tell. We laugh at him as he fell, as he was in our way. We trade his soul for pennies, as in dimes for a play. We weren't looking for him, but he was in our way. He fell down a well, and we don't really care. Where you think you're going, Mr. Mike? We just got... Oh, yeah, this is the part where they transition into the tune is it's sung to the tune of Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. Where you think you going, Mr. Mike? We just got mad. This is crazy. What Mr. Mike is doing as well, and will be with the girl. You get the feeling that these students are really used to composing with a keypad with their phones. The handwriting is really not all that. But whatever. I mean, it's like my handwriting isn't that great either. But yeah, I mean that's how it went. I knew it went really well this week. The kids were writing songs. I don't know, like about getting rid of me, about throwing me down a well. So that was very nice. It's strange but true. Teaching is going incredibly great if they sing about killing you. Yeah. Hey, Carrie. And Carrie's joining me tonight. I'm live tonight, by the way. I'm live. If you're watching right now and, thanks for stopping by. Feel free to duck out at any time, but it's good that you're dropping in just to say hey. But yeah, Carrie says that I need the camp for meatballs. I was just about to say that like I said, Friday the 13th, I love the first 20 minutes of those movies, and the first 20 minutes of those movies is basically meatballs, right? Whereas, Jason Voorhees is basically just replaced by, I guess, Bill Murray, None of the counselors get killed. It's just like a rollicking good time. I need to see that movie again. That's a good movie. You know, Are You Ready for the Summer is the theme to that song. Yeah, it was like an Ivan Reitman movie, you know, from Canada. And yeah, they made several movies, right, after several Meatball sequels. I think the last one had Corey Feldman in it. Corey Feldman, right? Yeah. Yeah, Meatballs, it's one of those weird franchises where the first one is like sweet and innocent. It's got some raunchy jokes in it, but overall it's, you know, it's like a PG rated family comedy more or less. And then the other ones are like just very raunchy R-rated romps that used to come on like USA Up All Night, right? All the time with like Rhonda Shear. Remember her? USA Up All Night in the 90s. It's like hosted by Rhonda Shear and Gilbert Gottfried. But they would show those Meatball movies all the time. And of course, you know, me as like a pubescent, you know, emerging teenager would always watch them because you felt like after 10 o'clock or something, the censors wouldn't care anymore, and you know, you would get to see nudity. You know, but you never really did. But it was always suggestive anyway. It was like the next best thing, I suppose. You know. Yeah, sort of like those Police Academy movies. Those Police Academy movies were the reverse because the first one was like rated R. It was like a raunchy romp with Steve Guttenberg and Kim Cattrall. And then the following Police Academy movies were like all rated PG. They were like kids movies. I used to watch them with my grandparents. Remember those? And then there was like a cartoon and there were toys and that was a bizarre decade, the 1980s, because they put something out, they realize that kids like it, and then they make it for kids, but sometimes they don't. Like it's still like the RoboCop movies, like they're still really, really violent. The first one comes out, it's like made for adults, but kids really get into it, and then the second one comes out, and it's even more violent. You know, and then they're still making it. You know, they're making toys for the kids and a TV series and action figures and all that. It was a weird time to grow up, was the 1980s, you know. Yeah, so yeah, I am very glad that summer camp ended really nicely this week. I just really threw myself into it. Wanted to do the best job I possibly could because, you know, as I said on like last week's show, it was I think maybe it was like a real downer for this normally like what I hope to be like a fun, you know, late night kind of chillaxing show. Never said the word chillaxing before, but yeah, there was this point last week when I was teaching summer camp that I was really worried, you know, that I had never been good at teaching like at all because it was just so terrible. I just was not doing very good, and I was, you know, down on myself. And but I, you know, like I said, I was just out of practice. I just hadn't done it for a little bit, and it just took me some time to get into it. And that's what any normal first week of school would be like, you know. And yeah, I just didn't feel very good about myself, but you know, but now I just am back into it. I really just had this great experience this week with teaching summer camp and working with the students, and I did get this sadness right on the last day that it's like, my gosh, I mean, after this is over, you know, there's like this big blank void between like now and mid-August. You know, the next couple of months is like there's just nothing. I have, you know, nothing else lined up. And, you know, I think that's why I was trying to do such a great job this week, like really consciously, like just giving it my all and really preparing very hard and working really hard with the students and just never sitting down and just always moving around, roving around, working with them and seeing where they're not understanding things and just making sure that I'm throwing myself right into it, is because it's just, I really felt this purpose, you know, that I just don't get every day anymore. It's like when I'm, out delivering food, just like out driving for dollars just around the city. Just this job that really does not take a lot of skill whatsoever to do. But, I just, I don't know, driving around and, but I don't know. I mean, also just using that time at least to, read books, not just like mindlessly go about it, but still be able to like kind of get knowledge. And I've gotten a lot into audiobooks lately. And, so yeah, like this week I've been, I don't know, I've been like out driving, driving for dollars. I've been listening to this, audiobook on Operation Paperclip, this week. And this is an interesting topic. If you know about Operation Paperclip, it's the American program that the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the FBI and the CIA and all these other acronyms working around the end of World War II. It was this program to bring over Nazi scientists to the United States, because the thinking is that there were all these great German scientists that were also these major Nazi ideologues. They didn't know how bad they were. Like, some of them, they just thought they were like Nazis. They were scientists who just had to make deals with Hitler just so they could continue working. Like, growing up in Alabama, where we worship German scientists who came over during Operation Paperclip, like people like Wernher von Braun, because these are the people that built here in Huntsville, Alabama, the V2 rocket that took us to the moon. We worship them here. And I grew up here in Alabama with Alabama history, learning that Wernher von Braun was just like this guy who he just wanted to do science. And it's like, who's this guy Hitler? Well, I guess I had to work with him for a while, but once he's out of there, I'll be able to continue, I'll be able to defect to the Americas, the people who really get me, and that's how we grew up learning about Wernher von Braun. But, you read into Operation Paperclip, and this book that I've been reading, it goes into like a lot of declassified documents that have just been unearthed and declassified after, many, many, many decades, obviously. It's been now 70 years, right? And you really do find out just like how scummy and really baked into Nazi ideology that some of these, people were. I think Wernher von Braun was definitely like in the Nazi party, and he was not as hard into it as a lot of the people he was working with. These people who were actually like the Surgeon General of for the SS. I just got finished reading a part in the book about him. Like, he was, they thought he was like von Braun too, just like another guy who just had to do his work and had to deal with the Nazis. But, he was there in the concentration camps, like breaking the shin bones of like women and, extracting like, blood from them and then injecting them with viruses. And I mean, doing all this horrible Nazi science. But von Braun was not as bad as people like that, but he was still this guy who his biggest crime was just turning a blind eye to all of the slaves and all these people who were in the underground, bunker of the middle work where they were building the V2 rocket, the rocket that they dropped on London. Sorry, the V6 was the Saturn V was the one that took us to the moon that von Braun built. But before that, they were in the middle work, that's just underground rocket assembly, place, building these rockets with slave labor and hanging slaves to set an example. They were using these gigantic cranes to just like do these, mass hangings. And von Braun gave the people who ran these facilities the plans, and he knew what was going on there. He knew what was going on, and it was just this, awful thing, just getting into Operation Paperclip, just how incredibly complex, our history is, because it is absolutely true that after World War II, the Soviets went hard into seeking world domination. The United States was not so much into that, but they definitely did not want the communists to, get an inch. And so a lot of, I mean, it was a complicated thing. A lot of them, they did have to bring Nazi scientists over to the Americas, because if they didn't, over to America, because if they didn't, they knew that they were going to go to, to Russia, to the Soviet Union. And there was a lot of scandal involved. The American people were not cool with it at all. But it's something that we also made our peace with because of the massive amounts of propaganda that were being put out by the United States military-industrial complex to just justify some of the laws, some of the ethical and moral boundaries that we had to cross in order to protect ourselves, to stay safe. So yeah. I was just driving around this week listening to this book. It's just a really fascinating, book. This book on, Operation Paperclip, and the thing is, like, yeah, I was driving around, especially today. It's like there was this part in the book where they talked about just all the hoops and all the secret cover-ups that the CIA had to go to in order to essentially launder these people into the country, these Nazi scientists, to make it look like they weren't actually taking people who had been convicted at the Nuremberg trials and giving them these lucrative government contracts, complete with like a house and furniture and a front yard and a dog, and they were basically like taking a lot of these Nazi scientists like to Mexico and then getting them visas and making them look like they were just immigrating to Mexico. So they were just like totally laundering these people into the country the way that you would like money or anything like that. And yeah, today I was just driving around. I was like really mad about this, just getting really mad, because I was just thinking like, it's like, God dang it, man. It's like, if they could get a job, these Nazi scientists, like, why can't I? Continue to be unemployed. I don't think the Nazi scientists, would get a job. In today's United States. I don't know. But I mean, it is just one of these like unfair things about history that if you have something to offer, no matter what you did in your past, it could usually be expunged from your record. But, if you've never done anything wrong and you have something to offer, I don't know. I'm still waiting for a call, I mean, this week, it's been like months now that I've been looking for a job. It's just been one of these things where it's like, just get used to it, Sally. But, I'm still trying. I'm still trying. And I mean, I swear, it's like each week it just feels like I try like a new state of desperation. And this week I sunk to a new low, like I posted something on LinkedIn. It's terrible job site, I got this email the other day also from, this is one of those emails that, obscure podcasters who never make any money get from time to time. They get these things where it's like, hey, Mike, I've been listening to some of your shows. I really enjoy them lately. I was wondering if you would be interested in talk to me about my company and what it does and how I can help market your show better and get it before the audience that it deserves. I want to talk to you about leveraging the power of AI, to make your show the best it can be. And so, and of course I ignored this, right? But because they normally, it's like you ignore it. They never write back. It's just like an auto email that's now even more automated using AI. But about a few days later, he got back to me again, and he sent a follow-up email. It's like, leverage AI, get it before the audience it deserves, And so I ignored it again. Then he emails me back like the next day. So, it's, at this point, I've been basically, I guess, doing the same thing that what now appears to be like a real person. I'm beginning to think more because I did some research on the company and all that. Doing the same thing. I was essentially like sending off unsolicited emails to just like people, seeing if, with my resume attached, just seeing if they need any help right now. And So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's like karma. I'll email this guy back, sure. So it's like I emailed him back, and I just was very frank, and I just said, like, I really appreciate it. Right now, it's like I've been doing this show for many years. I've been doing it for 15 years. I'm just fine where I am. Anybody who wants to watch my show has probably already found me. However, if you're looking for anybody right now who can edit, you need as an editor who can edit shows for your clients and also can like write show notes for them. It's like I'm a very talented and very professional writer with a lot of experience. I don't need AI, and I can also like churn things out for you much faster, more efficiently than AI. So if you are interested, please let me know. Here's my resume. That's I asked this spam guy for a job, just to see what would happen. I don't know. Yeah. He emailed me back, actually. And he said, I don't think we really have any openings right now, but thanks for getting back to me, and I appreciate your response. And haven't heard back from him again, It's like, maybe he's out there, like, emailing all of his other, spammer friends, and he's like, don't email this guy, he's going to ask you for a job or whatever. Maybe email him, who knows, if you need anybody. So I did a little bit of networking there. Maybe it's like I'm out there right now in the universe, my name being bounced around, who knows. And just again, like a new low this week. I actually I went to a networking party, and it's just like the idea is that I was going to go into like a room with a bunch of other unemployed people, and we were going to eat free food, which would probably be like the most we would all have to eat that week, and actually drink from an open bar. And just like get to know each other, and just just like a networking party, just like get to know people, like a real life version of LinkedIn, except if somebody's like a robot, right? They're approaching you, giving you some kind of a fake job lead that just turns out to be something that they're trying to sell you, right? I initially, I really did not want to, I don't really like going to parties anyway, much less like parties that are like a means to an end to like get a job or whatever. I used to have to go to those when I was working for a company back in the day, and it was always like the worst part of it. I hated it so much, but I don't know, like when you're unemployed, you just really do have to subscribe to the philosophy sometimes of like saying, yes, I'll make that deal. And so I said yes, and I had to do some laundry for that one because I haven't been out of the house in anything like merely presentable to like a professional person in like a couple of months. Not really. It's like, I just put on like a clean pair of jeans and, got one of my nice shirts, went from that company, Untuck It, which is like a great shirt that you can put on that looks nice, but you don't have to like tuck it in, so you don't like look all, like you're trying too hard. You just look casual, And so I went to this party, and it ended up being a lot of fun. I actually did go to this. It was pitched to me differently. It was not a network party. It was actually just like an open house. It was like this guy who had this loft downtown he was like trying to sell it. So I don't get the feeling that, like, I talked to him for a while. I don't get the feeling that once I laid it on him that I was like an unemployed teacher, currently making ends meet, trying to pay rent by teaching a theater camp this week. I don't think he was disappointed that I was there eating his free food and drinking from his open bar old fashions, but it was a fun night, and I went with my friend Dave, and just to this guy's loft. It's across the street from from Dave's studio, from his office, And so, yeah, it was this guy who was like about our age, and it's a 4-story loft that he's been like renovating for years. It used to be the old Jimmy Hale mission, and before that, like years ago, it's been many different things over the years. But when he was renovating it, they, I guess, took off some paint and some wallpaper and discovered all these old murals there that had been painted in like the 1920s when it was like a feed and seed store in downtown Birmingham. So it's really cool. But yeah, it was just like this top to bottom, you know, like redone. It was like standing in the middle of like an Architectural Digest, you know, VR experience or something. It was just like all the exposed brick and the brass handrails and just the open floor plan. And I was really terrified because I had worn my nice shoes. I was really terrified on that hardwood floor while I was walking around. You know, that I was like going to scuff it up. So I stayed basically in the island of the kitchen where there was actually a mat there to protect the hardwood floor, because the guy was selling the house, so he was really just trying to protect as much as he could without being tacky about it, I think. So I was just standing there like talking to the bartender all night long and while she was making me old fashions. And ended up talking to this other guy there and just like, yeah, what do you do? He's like, well, a lot of carpentry. I actually did a lot of the furnishings for this house, a lot of the floor, and so that made me like super even more nervous, right? But yeah, we eventually loosened up or so, and like everybody, you know, there's always that energy when you get into a party. You know, some people have been talking for a while, other people don't really know each other, and you get to this point where everybody kind of loosens up a little bit, and there wasn't a lot of people there either. The bartender looked like it was like the best gig that she had ever had. She was just like standing there and occasionally making, you know, drinks for each other, for people, you know. And it was this guy. It was just like one of these things, this window into, you know, what is so different about Generation X and millennials, like I was talking about last week. As we've gotten older, is that we are just like adult versions of like the kids that we used to be. We all grew up to be rich kids, essentially. I mean, some of us anyway. But, you know, when you walk in this loft, it was very obvious that like a Gen X, you know, nerd lived here. It was just this guy who clearly grew up, made a lot of money, and just put it into living his Ricky Schroeder Silver Spoons, you know, fantasy. And I'm not saying that at all in a bad way at all. But, you know, you walk up there and like the first thing you see on the wall are like all of these original prints of like these X-Men and Batman comics from the 1980s. You know, like these original hand drawings by these famous artists, you know. And you walk around and there's like just like Stephen King books on the bookshelf, and you know, just DVDs of like Shaun of the Dead and just like all these you know, like all these genre movies. Like it's not like walking into like this heavily decorated you know, rich person's house from like the 1960s or 70s or even today, where it's like you would have like a really, you know, wealthy person who probably hired somebody to bring in all the books. It was like clear that these were his books and these his movies and his comic book prints, and he was just so excited to be able to put them there and have people over to show them off. And it was just like talking to the guy was just like really cool and, you know, really, really unpretentious, you know. And it's just the difference between, I think, Gen X and millennials, what we've grown up to become, versus like our parents, you know, who there was a time for them to play and to play with toys and collect baseball cards, but it was very clear to them, right, that they would have to grow up and get jobs and go to parties where everybody had to pretend, or maybe they were just institutionalized adulthood, you know. And it was just, I don't know. I think like with our generations, it was just like we grew up. It's like nerd stuff became cool, you know, and lucrative. So, you know, many years ago, it's like if you were a nerd and you grew up to continue to be a nerd, it was just, you were just a nerd. It was really hard unless you were somebody, you know, like who could get paid to, you know, write comic books and things like that. But, you know, the thing about this guy who's like a little bit older than me and a little bit younger than Dave is that he, you know, grew up to get very, very do very well in software and computers and, you know, all this stuff that, like, you know, you're not supposed to engage in, you know, as a young kid who sort of wants a girlfriend and, like, wants to play sports and things like that. But he obviously, you know, grew up to do quite well in it. So, and I don't think he's gonna. I don't think going to this so-called networking party that just turned out to be an open house where I was just basically a freeloader there for the night. But I was talking to him. I don't think it's going to lead to a job or anything like that. But it was like a fun experience, and it made me feel just like I was, you know, still a part of this world. That, like, there was still more to everything than just like delivering people food and, you know. Who knows? Maybe something will come of it. I don't know. Maybe so. I took his business card. Yeah. Yeah, this has just been, this past week especially, it's just been a weird week, right? It's just been going, like, between, I don't know, getting respect and, you know, like, doing something I'm trained to do, like teaching at the school, versus just being, like, in this position where you, I don't want to say you're disrespected, like delivering food, but just like, and I'm not really even going to say you have to earn respect. You just have to do your job and be seen as little as possible, right? And, you know, just like this service job. And, you know, a key point the other day is, like, I went from teaching at the school to immediately turning on my food delivery app, going out, delivering, getting the order, bringing it back to a house that was right by the next school, and just the door opened on me. And I'm not kidding you, you know, 500 yards away from this place that I had just taught and done a damn good job at it, and had students singing songs about throwing me down a well, which is really a good thing, means they respect me. You know, I'm having this woman at the front door of her house getting mad at me because I was 5 minutes late because there was, you know, traffic on 280. She's like, I don't want to hear it. It was weird, you know? And yeah, just also, I don't know, you know, like going from just standing in this guy's, like, downtown loft, you know, this guy who is clearly a multimillionaire talking to me about, you know, Marvel and X-Men and, you know, the death of Superman, you know, and just hearing, you know, just being engaged in all this conversation and drinking, like, free booze, wearing a nice clean shirt, to, you know, the next night standing in a Popeyes in North Birmingham. It was like waiting an hour for food, having kids, like, run around me, you know, their mom trying to chase them. It was a very, very brightly lit restaurant, by the way. It's like, so, you know, it was just a weird, you know, weird thing, you know. I did unlock a new power this week, though. I did, you know, what I did is I took a picture, you know, out while I was standing in line at the Popeyes. I've been waiting there for a very long time, and I'm not kidding you. Everybody who came in and ordered, you know, got their food, you know, before me. I was there for like an hour waiting on food, and people kept on coming in, and they were getting their food and everything. And I don't know, there was something just, like, off about it. Like, they kept forgetting about me, asking me the name of the, I don't know, their system was off or whatever, you know. But, you know, you know, like, one thing that did happen, though, is, like, I took my phone out and I just took a picture of the Popeyes, you know, the cafe there, you know, and just showed Dave, like, how crowded it was and, like, how bright it was. And I just sort of sent him the picture, and I said, like, this tonight is very, very different than last night, right? And almost as soon as I sent that text out, they called my name, and I came up there, and they gave me my order. And the manager said to me, like, you know, were you taking pictures of everything? And I said, yeah, I was just sending them to my friend. I'm not trying to be weird about it or anything. They're like, no, that's okay. Just get home, go. You know, so they gave me. So I learned that, right? If you're ever in a restaurant, you're there for a very long time. The great way to have them just give you what you want so that they can get rid of you is to, take out your phone and just like be creepy. I guess I just looked creepy to them. I think that's what it was. That was a new power that I unlocked. Just, some sage advice. That could go with the 12 rules for life that my fake dad or like Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Yeah, one of my students, you're just talking about kids being honest, one of my students the other day was giving me, her rules for life that her mom had given her. Not her dad, but her mom, but, she was there in theater camp, and we just, I was helping her with her play, and she was just talking, and she says, like, my mom always tells me never to do, 3 things. And she says never drink alcohol. She tells me never to smoke cigars. She tells me never to speak Spanish. And I say, like, why Spanish? And she says, because she says that English is the best and Spanish is not. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what happens sometimes when you work with kids, right? Yeah. Kids say the most racist things, or they repeat the most racist things that their parents say, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, and to quote another thing from Bill Cosby, it's time for a drink. To some music. Play a couple of songs for you. I'll be back after the break.
Hey there, Jenny girl, aren't you coming back to me? From my empty bed, I heard it said that you can't live without me. I thought when I told you to go, I'd have my pick of the girls. But I've been running around all over town. Things is just getting worse. I'm so unhappy, I wish I was dead. I can't get into another girl's bed. Baby, I'm sorry, I called you a tramp. Do what you want me if you take me back. I went taking yesterday to wash all my blues away. I couldn't pay my tab, the barman says too bad. Now I'm in Belmont jail. I thought when I told you to go, I'd have my pick of the bunch. But I've been looking in every window, there's just no free lunch. I'm so unhappy, I wish I was dead. I can't get into another girl's bed. Baby, I'm sorry, I called you a tramp. Do what you want me if you take me back. I've been running around, baby, looking for you. I've been running around, Baby, I'm sorry, I caught you a trap. I'd do what you want me if you take me back. Please take me back. I'm lonely. I'm in love with you, girl, and you only. But you didn't even try to phone me. Why didn't you try? Can you find the money you owe me? I'd do what you want if you just take me back. Baby, don't make me say please. Do what you want, just take me back. Baby, down on my knees. Oh no.
Were you expecting the rain not to be so cold? 100 miles a gallon. Yeah, this road is getting old. And when you're gone, Lord, have mercy on your souls. You're such an ungodly creation. Yeah, now you're gone, and this is my appreciation. Like the leaves in the wind that blows. A little bird in the winter, down south it goes. And when you're gone, Lord, have mercy on your souls. And I will tell you the truth, dear. Yeah, we both know truth don't belong here. Just like a blade that's too tall to cut. You're an open door that always stays shut. When you're gone, Lord, have mercy on your souls. You'll wait a long time for an applause. It won't be me, babe, I don't support your cause. And when you're gone, have mercy on your souls.
Welcome to the second part of the show. Hope you enjoyed our music break just now. Yeah, that was Creep Boom with Belmont Jail Song. That was the first one we had up. And after that, we called the Bombay Laughing Club with When You're Gone. Both of those songs, by the way, are at the Free Music Archive, Creative Commons license. But I don't think you can tell. I like those songs. They were good. But yeah, you can play music from the Free Music Archive. Use it on your own show. Whatever you want to do, just as long as you attribute it appropriately, which I just did. The links are in the show notes also if you want to listen to that. So yeah, this is the Midnight Citizen Show. Tonight, I don't know if I said that or not, but you're listening to it. And tonight, yeah, we've got a couple of live folks watching us. Alex is in Argo, eating pineapple and enjoying the show. There you go. It's a very dangerous kind of fruit, isn't it? I know that's like a very cliched thing to say. I know you're supposed to slice up the pineapple and eat it that way, but it's very spiky, scary. Use it as a weapon. Yeah, Caitlin Gray says that my grandfather was one of the astrophysicists brought here from Germany. I definitely want to talk to you more about that. That's amazing. So I was talking about the scientists who were brought here from Germany on Operation Paperclip, and many of them were like entrenched Nazi ideologues, and others were purely just scientists who could not immigrate to the States, could not get out in time, and just were there. And so it was interesting. I remember having a high school English teacher who talked about her grandfather also immigrating to the States after the war. That he actually did have to fight in Hitler's army, and so it was interesting. Just yeah, history is a very, very complicated thing. Knows no borders. It really does not. You know, it knows dollars. It knows dollars. It definitely knows dollars. Yeah. So, yeah, just some plugs here. The Midnight Citizen Show. Primarily, I'd like you to listen to it on Spotify. That's where I do my most accurate metrics tracking on there. Not that it really matters all that much. If you go onto Spotify, Spotify will make you a partner and they'll begin to monetize you. So you have to publish at least 12 episodes. On Spotify, I've published 86 episodes. I actually have a lot more shows than that, but that's just what I have on Spotify. So I have 86 episodes on Spotify. So I've exceeded that metric. So all right, I'm on my way to monetizing myself. That's fantastic. But then you got to hit 10,000 consumption hours on Spotify. Right now I've got 14. Means out of those 86 episodes I've published, people have only listened to 14 hours collectively of my show. And then it says hit 2,000 people who streamed on Spotify. 2,000 people who went to Spotify, clicked play, and streamed it. I've got to have 2,000 people in order to monetize. I've got 2. Oh, you know. So if everybody who's listening right now can just go to Spotify, stop listening on whatever your platform you're listening on, just go to Spotify. You know, I can easily bring that 2 up to maybe like a 4 or a 5, you know, so just do that for me, please. That'd be great. So yeah, I've been also posting a lot on Instagram. So go over there, make sure you follow the show over there at @the Midnight Citizen Podcast. There's also a link in the show notes. I've been enjoying Instagram quite a lot. I've been on it for years, but it's always been annoying to me. But I think I finally figured out a little bit how to use it. You know, I think I've figured out the difference between a reel and a story. You know, a reel is something that you sit in the middle of a fast food restaurant and play really loudly while other people try to eat their chicken around you. And a story, you can just watch it silently. I think that's the difference between a reel and a story on Instagram. But I've been enjoying it a lot over there, trying to just like give you some, I hate to say it, but content that you can watch over there, that stuff that, you know, videos. I'm working on uploading over on the Instagram just some shorts of the show here, of just like individual like little bits of the monologues that I do and things like that. So make sure you go over there, follow me on Instagram, also on YouTube, which is where I'm streaming right now. I'm live on YouTube right now. And the audio only podcast and the video podcast get uploaded over there simultaneously. And that is also like the Instagram at @ Midnight Citizen Podcast. And so, yeah. And I also, obviously, I forgot the Substack. The Substack is where I am a lot. Now that I'm finished with summer camp, I'm going to be like publishing a lot more writing over there that I'm going to be working on this week. But that's just like where I live these days, is over on Substack. That's where I met this excellent user, Carrie, just an excellent writer over there that I've been reading a lot of her stuff and really been enjoying what you've been writing, Carrie, over there at Substack. So the link there is Mike's bonfire.substack.com. So go over there, make sure you check that out. And yeah, that's all the plugs I have. I think we're over the plugs now. I think we're done. So pour a little toast here for Brian Wilson, because we do need to drink to him a little bit. Yeah, definitely, I think. So do that. I don't know. I don't think we have enough. Probably one of the most, would you say like top 5 maybe influential, most important musicians of the 20th century. Yeah, I think we're going to need a bigger bottle for Brian Wilson. You know, my friends are, I've never been the biggest Beach Boy, fanatic. I probably the Beach Boys were maybe one of the first bands that I ever heard, just because like of that movie Flight of the Navigator was always on the Disney Channel when I was growing up in the mid to late 80s. So there's a scene in that movie where the kid is on the spaceship and he's flying all over the world, and like Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens is like the voice of the ship. And the kid's like, put something fun on, and so he puts on, I Get Around by the Beach Boys. And really probably one of the first pop songs I really am aware of his listening to. Not really pop, but rock, obviously. But, But yeah, just the Beach Boys were obviously like a major band in the 1960s. And I think, very much like the Beatles, who they're often compared to. The Beatles are like the British counterpart. The Beatles had this mold that they were very much poured into and shaped by the industry, and really because of a core member, or I guess in the Beatles' case, a core members. There was Brian Wilson just really wanted to break out of that mold, and just do new things, and he was very much responsible at times for breaking up the Beach Boys, getting them back together. It was all him, and just fighting with Mike Love. It was just the constant thorn in his side of like wanting them to maintain that like toothpaste commercial, good boy next door who owns a surfboard kind of image. I think it was one of those things. Dennis Wilson just wanted to go out and surf and get some barbecue, and you know, each of the Beach Boys, and I guess they're all gone now, aren't they? Yeah, Brian was the last one. I think Mike Love is still alive. He's their cousin. I think he's still alive, right? So, you know, and I hate to say, this is the first thing that popped into my mind. I was just saying this. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything at all, because as I said, I am not as big a Beach Boy fan as some of the other people I know, so I don't know if this joke is tasteless or not, but I will say that right now Brian Wilson is probably in the one place where Mike Love cannot beg him to come back out on tour with the Beach Boys, so, you know, say that. Yeah, I did get into a lot of like just Beach Boys backstory and lore. I guess this is probably about about a decade or so ago now, right? That that movie Love and Mercy came out, which I just think is like one of the best, you know, like I guess musical biographies, musical biopics that's ever been made, and it's not a great genre. Really, it's my like least favorite kind of genre, like kind of movie is the musical biopic. Like this is Freddie Mercury, right? Or this is Ray Charles. And, you know, these are generally very complicated people. And the problem with these musical biopics is they just like distill everything down into like a Walmart, you know, best of album is what they do. And it's not doing service to like these great musicians, I think. It's barely getting people to scratch the surface. Of what they should really just like, you know, I feel like musical biopics generally just like make a lot of people earn the, you know, just not earn the knowledge for themselves. It's just fast food filmmaking and it's fast food knowledge. And, you know, I don't know. And that's really the most comic book guy I think I'll ever sound on the show, really. You know, because again, I'm not really like a big nerd about the Beach Boys. And, you know, when I went and saw Love and Mercy, I thought it was just going to be like another musical biopic. And it's not. It's just a great character study of somebody like a Brian Wilson, of like somebody who is definitively a creative genius who is just bankrupted by not just mental illness and depression, but also just like these leeches, you know, around him and these abusive father figures, you know, first by his father, Murray Wilson, and then by, you know, ultimately Dr. Eugene Landy, you know, and just this story is just so crazy, you know, just this Eugene Landy. I found a clip of, this was from 1988 of Brian Wilson and just hanging out there with Eugene Landy. And if you don't know, again, this is covered in the movie Love and Mercy. Brian Wilson is played by two actors. He's played in the Pet Sounds and the Smile era, you know, in the late 60s, early 70s by Paul Dano. And then, you know, later on, he's played by John Cusack as an adult. And in the 1980s, when he meets his wife Melinda, who and they ultimately are able to emancipate him from Eugene Landy's care, but yeah, Dr. Eugene Landy is just like this Svengali-like psychiatrist who at one point wanted to be a musician. It really is like Charles Manson, but what if Charles Manson was not like, you know, Charles Manson, he was Eugene Landy instead. Just this guy who wanted to be a musician, globbed onto the closest one he could, who gave him the time of day, and just fed into all of Brian Wilson's like insecurities about himself and like kept him depressed and gave him drugs and drugged him up. And just, you know, really just it was just wild, you know. So let's see if I can get to this part about, this is in 1988, like kind of right before, I think Eugene Landy is forbidden from dealing anymore with Brian Wilson when they have their ultimate fallout, you know. And let's see, I think it's like
the live performance of a record, it's a recording of an event. When you go back into time, you risk serious depression on picking up a record that was
Brian Wilson with his just like trademark,
time of your life, you know?
like
That's why I don't play too many
just
old records.
slurred speech. I don't know if that's the way he always talked or that was just like from the years of, you know, drug abuse and just his brain kind of going to mush for a number of years.
But I regained it back. But having felt that I lost it was a very depressing thing. And it was a momentary thing. Maybe it might have lasted for 2-3 months at the most, you know? But during those 2-3 months, it was the hardest 2-3 months I ever lived, you know? I basically just withdrew from people, you know?
First met Brian's
And there's Eugene
no
Landy.
interaction with anyone. So there was something like 36, 38 different therapists that he'd been to on the traditional process before they got to me. And it was obvious that that traditional methodology wasn't going to work. So I had to take it out of the therapy room and move it into real life. And I've been grateful for that experience, that exchange.
Man, that's wild. Like, look at them. Like, Eugene Landy walking with Brian Wilson, who's lost a lot of weight. You know, like, Brian Wilson at his heaviest, he was like 300 pounds. So whatever Eugene Landy did initially, and I'm sure whatever it was, is probably not approved by the FDA now, but it worked. So they're walking along the beach. It's like soft lighting, indicative of like the 1980s. And it just looks like Eugene Landy is like, I don't know, like more of sort of a deranged Paul Simon by way of Gilligan haircut. You know, just like nonstop talking to Brian Wilson, telling him how he's supposed to feel and think and whatever.
He was most distressed by the shape I was in, and he had to take me to Hawaii and put me on intravenous vitamins every day, you know, for like 2 months. And started me walking up a hill instead of running. He just had me walk. And I was losing 1.5 pounds a day, you know, real fast. I was throwing it off real fast.
That's not healthy, Brian.
He said, you know, Brian, I think you're going to make it. I think you're going to be okay.
This is all about enjoying his life and doing something which makes him feel significant to himself. In this case, happens to be music. Brian has not really been rehabilitated because that would have put him back where he was. Brian's been habilitated. He's been put in a new place with new start and new situation. He looks at life with some new eyes. And
it's just like, as Eugene Landy just cannot stop talking, Brian Wilson is just like rubbing his hands together, like looking down at the floor. He looks a lot like, you know, Carl, you know, who's played by Billy Bob Thornton in the movie Sling Blade, just this out of it guy. There's a lot of stuff going on in his head right now. And it just seems like Brian Wilson is trying to do like a lot of mental gymnastics to rationalize this guy's behavior and this guy's hold over him, because this whole cover story, this news magazine story, is being done in 1988 to promote Brian Wilson's solo, or you know, his solo album that, of course, Eugene Landy is the executive producer on. So it's very clear that a lot of this documentary is made to make it look to the public like Eugene Landy has been successful. And Landy, no doubt, got a lot of the money and a lot of the royalties from these from this album. And so he's protecting his empire here. You know.
and all the experience that he's had in life and some new views about it.
Oh, God, I love that song. Love and Mercy, yeah.
Well, basically, when I'm working in the studio, it's like a carte blanche feeling. I figure, what is this? You know, I can't believe this. Here I am cutting music, and all this magic music's coming out those speakers, you know. It's like a newfound power. It's a tool, a toy, you know. I have an overview of this, and it's pliable. It's like putty. I've got some putty in my hands, and I'm working with this putty, and I feel it. And I get a feel. Yeah, there it is. You know, I've located something in the putty, and I work with it real slowly, you know. But it is something I do out of extreme pride in my craft. You know? My craft means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just because, like, the presence of Eugene Landy haunts this documentary does not mean that, like, we can't appreciate what Brian Wilson is saying here, as he's still got this, like, hold over him by this guy. Again, this is in the late 80s when he has met his wife, and in a few years they would get completely away from this, but Brian Wilson still had this, like, utter love and this sincere connection with Eugene Landy, even though, you know, the movie that came out, Love and Mercy, just makes it seem like they made this utter break and that Brian Wilson came to his senses and cut it off. It just was not, as I said, like history is just not that clean. You can't spin, Eugene Landy started working with Wilson in, the mid 1970s, and you can't spend, 15 years with somebody, no matter how much of a hold they have on you, and just make it a complete, break. You have to, you still had that. And I think Brian Wilson dedicated, his autobiography to Landy, and, so it's a complicated thing, with him, but, whatever the case though, it's one of those things where I think people knew, for a while that, Brian Wilson was getting there. He was in his 80s. He, I believe had been suffering from a little bit from some mild dementia. And it's also one of these things where his wife recently passed away too. Melinda, died, I believe, last year or the year before that. So it's very much one of these things where, June Carter Cash dies and then Johnny Cash dies like a year later, and it's like you have these relationships, that seem to be like where the husband or the wife is there long enough to see their spouse or their partner through. And then they just are like, okay, that's enough. I'm out, And so that may have been what happened, and of course the comedian Jeff Cesario has a great remedy for that. He's like, well, maybe he just forgot where she put his medication. That could be it too, but yeah. Yeah, I wanted to definitely play this. I talked a lot about Mike Love, and I'm not like too much up on the Beach Boys, but I do know that there is this tension that Mike Love brings to the Beach Boys of being just the entrepreneur, the businessman guy. There's always one of them in every group who is way more about the brand, than about the actual music. And and Mike Love, I think, is very much responsible for one of the very first songs I ever heard in my life. And, man, what a bad entry to music. It was Kokomo from the Cocktail soundtrack. My mom used to have that on cassette, just play it endlessly. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I want to take you. My God, man. It just is like, but all the Beach Boys were there, and John Stamos was there. It was like that. See, that video, that Kokomo song introduced the world to John Stamos. So I don't know if we've forgiven them for that, but but yeah, Mike Love was just this guy who always had this, like, I don't want to say like Eugene Landy, but definitely was always, had this weird, brought this weird presence to the Beach Boys. Like, he was definitely the outsider as just not being the brother. And there was this infamous, like Beach Boys Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction that he wrecked back in the 80s. Brian Wilson gets up there and gives like a very heartfelt and tender speech about all of his influences. And then yeah, there's this,
I've been asked to say a few words on behalf of
Mike
our beloved
Love.
Dennis, who's gone. And this would have thrilled him beyond belief. And so, from Dennis Wilson, I thank you. Thank you.
You heard from Cousin Brian the reason why we started making music and the reason that keeps us going. And it sounds corny, but you can hear it in the harmonies, those of you who are musicians. And the reason why people like the Beach Boys is because we love harmony. We love music and we love harmony. And we love all people, too. When I went to school, high school, my cousin Brian and I would jump over the fence, ditch class, we'd go surfing. Now, we couldn't surf very good, but it was a whole lifestyle thing. We would listen to the music, the R&B music of the time. And some of our favorite records were the doo-wop type of deals, and there you go again with harmony. And I think it's wonderful to be here tonight, but I also think it's sad that there are other people who aren't here tonight. And those are the people who have passed away. Those are the obvious ones. But the other not-so-obvious ones are people like Paul McCartney, who couldn't be here tonight because he's in a lawsuit with Ringo and Yoko.
Wait, what?
That's what he sent a telegram to some high-priced attorney in this room, you know? Now that's a bummer, because we're talking about harmony, right, in the world. If we can't get it together in America and in England in harmony within our groups, I mean, believe it. You can believe it, the Beach Boys have their own intestine or whatever you call it, squabbles. But that's a bummer when Ms. Ross can't make it, you know? The Beach Boys have continued to do we did about 180 performances last year. I'd like to see the Mop Tops match that.
He's so angry.
I'd like to see Mick Jagger get out on his stage and do I Get Around versus Jumpin' Jack Flash any day now.
Hey, you know what, Mike Love? I think he's actually. I think the Stones actually had a concert tonight. I think they did.
Love is crazy. Well, they've been saying that for years.
And they'll continue
Ain't nothing
to.
new about that. But what I'm talking about is forget this room. The United States is 6% of the population in the world. That's why I came here tonight with Muhammad Ali.
What?
Muhammad, salam alaikum.
Wait. All right, listen here. Okay, so, I know rock stars are supposed to be weird, but, anybody who thought that, like Adrian Brody's speech at the Academy Awards this year, won the Oscar for that movie where he builds the YMCA, anybody who thought that was like weird or self-indulgent, they need to go back and watch, Mike Love. This is like, you only get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like once. I mean, occasionally if you're like with multiple acts, of course, but Mike Love, this is like the only chance because he's so damn untalented. He's going to have to get up here on stage. And he just gets up here and he like, insults, Paul McCartney and, for being in like a legal battle. And he's talking about just like everybody needs to get in harmony. And then he insults half of like, the classical acts of, rock and roll, from the 20th century. It's like, what is he getting at there? I don't know. I don't get it. Welcome, Paul, and welcome Dave to the Nightbird. Welcome. So, hope I'm getting all my Beach Boys facts straight tonight and all up with it and everything. And yeah, with let's see. I'm gonna go to the video store in just a minute. I wanted to before I do that, I'm gonna play you like another classic Beach Boys moment from television history. It's like because listen, I want to honor like Brian Wilson, but it's also like the Beach Boys appearances throughout history are more famous for their gaffes than the moments that they've gotten right, where they seem to all get along and get around. It's just, but I'll play that in just a minute. I do want to say this just came up on the news feed tonight that a new Birmingham strip club is opening. If you're interested in that. No, it's like what was fascinated about this was, for years and years, Sammy's was the premier strip club in town, and I wasn't someplace I went to, but it was always there. And just Birmingham being a very conservative, button-down town, most of the gentlemen's clubs are like in places like North Birmingham and West Birmingham. You get them all over the place out there, but in the more conservative and densely populated places like Homewood, for instance, which is where, Sammy's is, it was always a very controversial place, this like strip club out there on Valley Avenue, that had been there for years, and it did close down. And this is a good story. This is going to be the subject, I swear, of like, like an NPR you know, like This American Life story at some point or whatever. But Sammy's closed down last year after years and years in business. I mean, it's probably been open since like what, the 80s. And it closed down because of a lawsuit that the dancers actually filed together collectively, that they were getting gypped out of tips by the management, that the people like the DJs and the bouncers, these people who generally do not make tips, they were getting tipped out. They were getting portions of what the dancers were being tipped. So the dancers actually banded together, and in this like amazing moment of like, you know, strong women solidarity, you know, they filed a lawsuit, you know, for more than $632,000 and won, and it led to the place being closed down. So, and you know, they were being classified illegally as general contractors. You know, as like you know, the same classification as like the people who, like, imagine the people who, like, you know, come to your house and like, you know, fix your roof and your water damage and like cut up your trees after a big storm and haul them off. You know, imagine if those people came over and started like dancing on poles and taking off their clothes and everything. That's what they were being like, you know, labeled as by Sammy's, you know, as general contractors. So Sammy's was closed down, which is interesting. I did not know it was closed down. I was just driving by it the other day and like there were no cars in the parking lot. So it's like it generally is, you know, it's just this place where, you know, has not been really turning any business over in years, but it will be reopened. The Pony Birmingham, the Pony Club, is being planned to open next year, it says an opening date has not been announced. It just says on their Facebook page, this is like the tagline. It says, get ready for Velvet Nights, wild energy, and the hottest entertainers in the game. The stage is set, and we're just pulling back the curtain. So, you know, that'll be something to look forward to next year if you're into that kind of thing. Go to the Pony Club. I will say this, they are hiring right now, so they're hiring a security, waitresses, a DJ. I'm kind of DJing right now, am I not? And they need a Mr. Manager, you know. No dancers, so no dancers, unfortunately. But they are, yeah, maybe, so that's a job opening I can possibly do. I don't know, maybe, you know. I do remember, you know, Sammy's has been there so long, and as I said, just had this notorious reputation in Birmingham for being this you know, house of ill repute in the middle of this conservative neighborhood, and all the kids, of course, had like a lot of great legends about it, you know, and just a lot of gossip about it. Like, oh no, I went there one time with my uncle, or my grandfather took me there, or whatever, after church, and everybody would always, you know, just trade off, you know, these BS stories about it, about going to Sammy's. But I do remember that there was a friend of mine in middle school. He was like in the 8th grade. He was going out with this girl who was a classmate of ours, and I did not know if this was true or not. It may have been, but he said that her uncle was a co-owner in Sammy's, right? So that my friend Andrew, and he said, like, you know, man, it's like, now that I'm going out with this girl, man, it's like I'm all hooked up. I tell you what, it's like, what are you talking about, Andrew? And he's like, well, man, it's like all I got to do is I got to marry her, and then like the uncle's got to die, and then there you go, man. I'm going to be the owner of Sammy's strip club there in Valley Avenue. So he had it like all figured out at 12 what he was going to do. All right, so I'm going to take another break here, and we're going to go down to the Video Street Video Store. Yes, that great place down the street. Watch some tapes that are themed to what we've been talking about tonight, and I will be back right after that to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for listening tonight. It's the Midnight Citizen Show.
Friday the 13th, those two in a row, just like that, I think that's what started it all.
Tom Savini's effects were crucial to the popularity of those films.
Jason from Friday the 13th, the first one, was, I kept thinking of this guy that I saw in my neighborhood when I was a kid. He was misshapen. He had a big ear that was pushed down here, and it was lower than the other ear. So he needed to be retarded, needed to be hydrocephalic or a pinhead or something like that, you know. So if you can do that and make it look like there's bone structure beneath all these deformations, then the audience buys it. I stood outside of a theater waiting to walk in to watch this movie, and I heard the whole theater scream at the top of their lungs. I says, wow, you know. So I go in, I forget all about the audience screaming, and then we all scream when Jason came up. So the point is, it worked. You felt something.
By far the most popular figure, for better or worse, has been Jason, has been the masked, psychotic, deformed killer. Readers write in describing Jason as if they're talking about Willie Mays.
I chose it because they called it the final chapter, and I got to kill Jason. I gave him birth in part one. It's like a Frankenstein syndrome. I'm taking care and killing my monster that I created, okay? Plus, they paid me a fortune. My old friend Jason has been sliced, diced. I mean, he's been killed 58 times. I mean, the guy is unstoppable. Wanted him to be ugly, you know. In my mind, Jason had to look like a 38-year-old version of the kid, you know, from part one. But it involved doing a whole sculpture of a whole head and then breaking it down into individual appliances to be stuck on to the actor. And I had never done anything like that, but Dick Smith had. Dick Smith, by the way, is the master, the greatest makeup artist in the world. Finally won an Academy Award that he's deserved for 40 years, you know. Dick Smith, when he invents a technique, he'll write it down, then he'll type it up, then he'll mimeograph it, and send it off to us, you know, if we ask, you know. He shares, you know, the secrets. If it wasn't for him, the state of the art would not be where it is today. Now we got to kill Jason, but it's got to be dramatic. 4 movies this guy's been rubbing out teenagers, you know, now it's his turn to get it. So I had this machete from Dawn of the Dead that we used to, you know, split the guy's head, you know. So I said, that's it, that's how we'll kill Jason.
Jason!
No way to slide down a machete, realistically, unless we, you know, do a traveling mat or something, you know. So we had to do it mechanically. So we built this thing. We tested it over and over and over again with water, you know, for the bleeding. But the idea of somebody getting hit and then sliding on the blade, what a payoff. They were screaming their lungs off. And there's our reward. You know, we have to wait a year later to get our reward, and there it was, and it was worth it.
Get tired of hearing that. It's 8:47 right now, 8:48. Surf's up, girls are pretty, and the Beach Boys, that's all part of what the 60s were all about. It's hard to believe, but this New Year's Eve will mark the 20th anniversary of the Beach Boys. And they're with us this morning live by satellite from our studios in Los Angeles. Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Carl Wilson, Mike Love, Al Jardine, and their manager, Jerry Schilling. Good morning, all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I just want to start by asking, I mean, 20 years is a long time for any group. Dennis, maybe you'd like to start this off. Why do you think that you've had such, you know, continued popularity? Dennis?
Dennis.
Good morning, Dennis. I know it's early there. You guys, what do you think, really though, why do you think that you've continued to be so popular over so many years?
Well, it's the music, obviously. People enjoy the sort of the happy, easygoing sort of spirited music that we make. Yeah.
Does it bother you
know,
at all?
the sound that we all make together, what?
Does it bother you at all, though, that people they really kind of don't want you to change? They still want to hear the same music all the time.
Well, you know, we resisted that at different times, but we found that people really loved the sort of the basic style that we started with, and so we've learned to just really enjoy what we're doing and do that for the people.
Yeah, Carl?
Yes?
Do you feel that over the years that you felt a need to change, even though the audience doesn't want you to change? I mean, personally, do you think you want to change?
Well, we've done, you know, whatever songs we've written, and if we've decided to change styles here and there, it's just been a spontaneous type of thing. So we've just sort of moved with what felt most natural to us, musically speaking.
Now, three of you are brothers, there's one cousin. Does that kind of a family relationship, you know, help you, or does sometimes that present problems?
Well, it has its moments, and I think that overall that we've, growing up together, knowing each other for, you know, most of our life, that we've learned to accept each other just the way we are.
Dennis, how you doing out there? We keeping you awake?
I'm borrowing my brother Carl's microphone. I think that this is ABC.
Yeah.
You need a new microphone.
No. All right.
How's David?
David's just fine. You know what? Now you have teenagers now. Some of you. Do they like the music that you play?
Yes, I have two daughters.
How old?
Turning 12 and 10. And they both love our music. I mean, they play our records on their record players.
They really do. They do.
If they don't, they go to bed early.
Hey, do you like what they listen to? I mean, other than you?
Yeah.
What do they listen to other than you? Do they like the new kind of rock sound?
They like hard rock. They like Barbra Streisand, the Bee Gees. They like all kinds of things.
What do you listen to when you're at home?
I listen to a record called Be My Baby by the Ronettes.
The legend lives on, right?
I know you didn't you kind of model a lot of your sound after like the Four Freshmen, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, we used to get together around Brian's piano, and he'd bang out the research with the vocal parts, using the Four Freshmen's arrangements as models.
Yeah.
And he'd dish them all out to us, and it was pretty amazing the way he could not only retain, but come up with innovative arrangements, and that's been one of our strengths, is Brian's arrangement ability.
Yeah, because everyone now has copied you. Hey, Brian, I know you're kind of a shy guy, aren't you?
A little bit, yeah.
You guys have gone through a lot of changes, and you've gone through some difficulties over the years. Has all that been resolved now?
Most of it, yeah. I think Mike could probably answer that better than I could.
Okay, Mike.
Well, the thing is, we're all here together. It's been 20 years, and it hasn't been totally joyous every step of the way, because we are, you know, brothers and cousins and ordinary human beings that have their different points of view, and we've had arguments and stuff, but the overwhelming fact is that we're still here, and we're together.
Jerry Schilling, does he have something to do with...
Yeah, Jerry's right over here. Why don't we have Jerry come in?
Jerry, why don't you come out? Now, you've been...
He's our manager.
And it's also your first personal manager, I believe, in about 14 years. What kind of effect has Jerry had on the group?
I think the effect of Jerry being involved with this has been one of cohesiveness. He's brought a lot of harmony to the group, a spokesman for us that we've all sort of conferred upon the title of manager, and We've been working together more coherently than in the past.
You think you have been working more coherently now. Jerry, what do you think?
I think so.
Well,
Jerry, can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
I'll just do it this way.
What's it like managing the Beach Boys?
Well, I think it's been quite an experience for me to manage a major group, a group that has been noted for having problems, as you asked, but I find very professional. I find they've brought joy to people all throughout the world, and I think it's quite an honor to work for the Beach Boys, and I have certainly enjoyed it.
What about the fact that they need to remain the same because people want that?
Well, I think they remain the same in a lot of areas because people do expect a certain type of music from the Beach Boys, but they have done so much variety of music and so many different things. I mean, Brian has come up with so many. He was one of the first, or if not the first, self-produced artist.
Only force in the Beach Boys that exists. He's the reason that we're all sitting here.
Really? Brian?
Music, yeah, musically, and then with all the boys chipping in and the harmonies that I don't think that there's a group around that can sing like the boys.
You have good vibrations about where you're going to be going in the future for this group?
Well, yes. I think somebody asked Brian yesterday what would he like to be remembered for the Beach Boys as a whole, and he said good vibrations. And he meant that in many aspects.
Well, we've enjoyed having you all here this morning. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I listened to a record called Be My Baby by the Ronettes. Next question. It looks like, like Ron Swanson there from Parks and Rec. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, the Beach Boys are, from what I know of them, I was born, I believe the year after that interview took place. That was a Good Morning America interview, a notorious interview, where they just can't get it together. And it was right before Dennis Wilson drowned. And, from what I always understand about the Beach Boys, they're known just as much for their offstage gaffes as they are their onstage harmonies. And I think that's what makes them. I mean, nobody really likes a band too much, who just they all get along all the time. I mean, and it is amazing for a band that absolutely fought, and really at times everybody detested each other as much as the Beach Boys did, that they did have that much staying power. And also just the fact that Brian Wilson was able to outlive them and be able to preserve the legacy in a way that it wasn't tampered with, or I think is really a lot. So this is just my very long toast, right, to Brian Wilson. As I said, I think we're gonna need a bigger bottle for Brian Wilson. Hope you guys are all watching. We've got a good crowd watching tonight. We got Paul, as I said, joined in. Alex, Dave is watching, who has been texting me Beach Boy facts and and all that, and I didn't know what year this interview was, what year that interview on Good Morning America was, so I had to text him because I didn't know. He said probably 80 or 81, but it was definitely before Dennis drowned, because he is clearly there in the interview. I think he was the first one to go, very sadly. So, but anyway. And I think that's where we're going to leave it tonight with the show. I want to thank you so much for joining me here tonight. If you're live, I really appreciate it. If you join me late, any of you guys, just like, you know, you can go back and listen to the show from the beginning, but it's over on Spotify, as I said. Spotify is like the best place. Leave a comment over there, rate it so other people find the show, all that stuff. And I'm over on mikesbonfire.substack.com. Also over at onsug, ONSUG.com, where you can find me as well as a lot of other great podcasters that do monologue shows really just like this one, right? Yeah. And yeah, if you want to see that Friday the 13th bit I played there from it was an interview with Tom Savini. I found that was like on an old Japanese Laserdisc. I was trying to find just like some vintage, like behind the scenes Friday the 13th stuff, and they didn't really do behind the scenes like making of featurettes, you know, like back in the 1980s for the Friday the 13th movies, because they were just really considered, I think, sort of low rent, not really worth doing them. It's just like make a Friday the 13th movie, get the money back, and make a little bit more after that. But other than that, you know, we don't need to really go into a lot of detail about how we made these movies, and it wasn't really, you know, it's not really important. But, you know, like, what is it? Like, you know, 45 years after the original, you know, Friday the 13th, we're still talking about it. Every Friday the 13th, you know, we talk about Jason. We, you know, watch those movies. And I was working with the students this week, and the students, the older students, the ones who were like 13, 14 years old, they were all talking about Jason Voorhees, you know, and they were all talking about, you know, Camp Crystal Lake and Friday the 13th. So it has endured. That's really saying something. The two things that we talked about tonight that have really endured the test of time, right? Friday the 13th and yeah, the Beach Boys. I wish I could play some Beach Boys tonight to play us out, but I don't want to get sued. So in lieu of that, you know, like, here's some surf music for you. There you go. Let's go to the beach. Let's go to the beach. All right. It's summertime. I will not be doing a show in the studio next week. I will be out of town traveling to Tennessee. I'm going to try to do a show for the road and get it to you regular Saturday night, but I'll be here the week after that, definitely back in the studio. Let me know if you want to do another live show. Like I said, I've been asking people the past couple weeks if they want me to continue doing live shows. Nobody's really answered me, but people have shown up, and so that shows me that, you know, if you're around on a Saturday night and you're not doing anything except, you know, drinking and eating pineapple, then you can join in the show. And I have a really good time doing it, and I've had a great time talking to you guys tonight, going back and forth with you on the chat. And yeah, just let me know. In any case, see you next time. Keep your eyes open.